For tonight's class, we're using a resistance band, the 2 towels we always use, and a seated prop like a block or a pillow. And I just want to show you a picture before we get going, because I'm going to talk about an image for our adductors. So those are the muscles of the inner thigh. This is not the best image, but what I kind of want to show you is that it starts at the top here and it comes and attaches to the inner thigh here. And all I want you to see is that it's narrow up here and wide at the bottom. We're going to talk about it being a fan. And so it would be more useful if there was some things taken away and you could just see that, but starts here, fans out. And there's more than one adductor. It's a few muscles. It's 3 muscles altogether, but we're going to think about it as that fan shape. We're going to start standing. And we'll have our feet about hip distance or shoulder distance apart, whatever feels comfortable for you, and just noticing how your feet are relating to the floor. And we're going to bend our knees and straighten our knees. We're going to take this exercise that we did last week, bending and straightening, but we're going to think about some different body parts this week. So starting with our feet, as we bend the knees, the arches flatten and the feet widen. And as we straighten the knees, the arches lift. Bending the knees, arches flatten, feet widen. Straightening the knees, arches lift. Bending the knees, arches flatten, feet widen. Straightening the knees, arches lift. Bending the knees, arches flatten, feet widen. Straightening the knees, arches lifting. Let's move up to our adductors. So we talked about that fan narrow here and then getting long. As we bend the knees, we're going to imagine that that fan is opening, getting wider. And as we straighten the knees, the fan is getting more narrow. Bending the knees, fan is widening. Straightening the knees, fan getting narrow. Bending the knees, fan is widening. Straightening the knees, fan narrowing. Bending the knees, fan widening. Straightening the knees, fan narrowing. One more time, bending the knees, fan widening. Straightening the knees, fan narrowing. Coming to our thigh bones. As we bend the knees, thigh bones rotating out. As we straighten the knees, thigh bones rotating in. Bending the knees, thigh bones rotating out. Straightening the knees, thigh bones rotating in. Bending the knees, thigh bones rotating out. Straightening the knees, thigh bones rotating in. Bending the knees, thigh bones rotating out. Straightening the knees, thigh bones rotating in. Bending the knees, thigh bones rotating out. Straightening the knees, thigh bones rotating in. Let's take our hands to our iliac crest. That's the hump right here on our skeleton, or on our pelvis, sorry. And as we bend the knees, we'll draw our hands towards the midline. And as we straighten the knees, we'll bring them back to the iliac crest. As we bend the knees and the hands come towards the midline, the pelvic half is rotating internally. As we straighten, pelvic halves rotating externally. Bending, pelvic halves rotating internally. Straightening, pelvic halves rotating externally. Going along with that, as we bend the knees and pelvic halves rotate internally, our transversus abdominis and our obliques are shortening. As we straighten and the pelvic halves rotate externally, our transversus abdominis and obliques are lengthening. Bending, pelvic halves rotate internally, abdominal shortening. Straightening, pelvic halves rotate externally, abdominals lengthening. Bending, pelvic halves rotating internally, abdominal shortening. Strengthening, straightening, pelvic halves rotate externally, pelvic, abdominal muscles lengthening. Let's take our hands to our spinal curves, our low back and our neck. And as we bend our knees, we'll feel for those curves deepening. And as we straighten the knees, the curves are lengthening. Bending the knees, curves are deepening. Straightening the knees, curves lengthening. Bend the knees, curves deepening. Straighten the knees, curves lengthening. Bending the knees, curves deepening. Straightening, curves lengthen. One more time, bend, curves deepen, and straighten, curves lengthen. Let's take our hands down to our sides. We're going to bend our knees here. Straighten the knees. As we lift our heels, we'll float the arms up, rib cage arms. We'll angel arms as we lower our heels, and we'll bend the knees. Arms continue down. Lifting up. Arms are staying slightly in front of the body as we angel arms, bending the knees. And just being aware that as we bend and straighten, all of these parts inside of us are moving. So doing so much good for our body just with a simple bend and straighten. Always a good reminder for those days where you're just not feeling up to doing a whole lot, that even just standing up, bending the knees and straightening can do so much good for the body. Circling around. This time we're going to come up. We're going to pause here, hold the heels up, and let's just see if we can find our breath, breathing. And then if you feel up to it, we're going to keep the heels up, but we're going to circle the arms down. Let's add our breath with our arms. We'll inhale, float the arms up, and we'll exhale, circle the arms around. Noticing that the arms, staying in front of the body will help with the balance. Arms floating up, inhale. Exhale, arms circling around. Let's do one more here. Inhale, arms floating up. Exhale as we circle, let's lower the heels, bend the knees. We're going to take a minute to find our abdominal cylinder. So we're going to give ourselves a hug. Arms coming to lower part of the shoulder blades, and we're probably not quite reaching it for most of us, but we're going to imagine we're tracing the lower trapezius muscles, and as we come to the side from there, we're coming into our latissimus dorsi, and then coming into our serratus anterior, coming down into the obliques from the ribs down towards the pelvis, getting into the transversus abdominis and the pelvic floor. Let's try that again. Coming up, lower trapezius, lats, serratus, obliques, transversus abdominis into the pelvic floor. One more time, hugging. Lower trapezius, lats, serratus, obliques, transversus abdominis, pelvic floor. So that's creating like a corset of support, like a cylinder of support for the torso. And we're going to see if we can feel that a little bit by grabbing our resistance band. And we're going to stand on the resistance band with our feet. I am going to hold my band with my palms facing forward, my thumbs facing out. And we'll inhale, lift the shoulders up to the ears. Exhale, shoulders softening. Bending the elbows, lifting. Lowering the elbows down. Floating the arms into angel arms, maybe to the mid or lower ribs. And lowering down. Shoulders lift. Inhale. Exhale, release. Bending the elbows, pulling up. Straightening the elbows, lowering down. Palms face the front as we float the arms up. And lowering down. Let's just notice as we move our arms, if we can feel any activation there of our center, that three-dimensional core supporting us. Maybe noticing a bit more as we float the arms up. Lowering down. Inhale, shoulders up. Exhale, softening. Bending the elbows. Lowering down. Shoulder blades as counterweights as we float the arms up. And lower the arms down. Maybe starting to feel this a little bit in our upper traps. That's like the top of the shoulders, where shoulder towards between shoulders and neck. And that's okay because we're kind of targeting that with our shoulder lifts and our upright rows. And the reason I'm doing that is because for those of us who have challenges with pain or stiffness in our neck, the research tells us the number one thing that will help with that is building strength in those muscles. So we're gonna do some of that. I think we've talked about this before, how it's one of those body parts that for some reason we think we're not supposed to strengthen, that we worry, I guess, that it'll increase the tension or pain, but sometimes tension and pain is a signal to us that the body needs a bit more strength in that area, or stability. Floating the arms up, shoulder blades as counterweights. Let's do one more here. Inhale up. Exhale, soften. Bending the knees. That's our elbows. Floating the arms up. Floating the arms down. Let's pause here and just take one ear to our shoulder. Lift that opposite shoulder up. And as you exhale, soften, let it release. The TheraBand's going to pull a little bit on that. Inhale up. So if that's uncomfortable for you, lowering down, feel free to release the band if you want. One more time. Inhale, shoulder up. Exhale, let that shoulder soften. Turn and look over that shoulder. Face comes forward. Turn and look over the shoulder. Face comes forward. One more time, turn and look over the shoulder. Face comes forward. We'll lift the head up. We'll go to the other side, ear to shoulder. Opposite shoulder lifts. Inhale and exhale. Feel that shoulder releasing. Let gravity and the TheraBand help it down. Inhale up and exhale, release. Inhale up. Exhale, release. Let's turn and look over the shoulder. Face turns forward. Turn and look over the shoulder. Face forward. Turn and look over the shoulder. Face forward. I'm going to turn my hands so my palms are facing the back. You can stay in that external rotation if you want. I just find it a little more comfortable myself like this. We're going to imagine our collarbones moving backwards in space. As you do that, you'll feel the shoulder blades maybe getting closer together. I'm going to turn to this side. Then we're going to press the arms back. As we press the arms back, just watching that we're not shoving our ribs out forward, we'll turn and look over one shoulder. We'll turn and look over the other shoulder, coming back through center and release. Collarbones move backwards in space, pressing the arms back. Ribs stay hovering over pelvis. That's going to help us find that three-dimensional core. Turn and look over one shoulder. Turn and look over the other shoulder. Back through center and release. Let's inhale here. Exhale, collarbones back, arms press back. Inhale over one shoulder and exhale over the other shoulder. Back through center and release. Inhale here. Exhale, collarbones back, arms press back. Turn and look over one shoulder. Turn and look over the other shoulder. Back through center and release. Inhale here. Exhale, collarbones back, arms press back, ribs over pelvis. Turn and look over one shoulder. Turn and look over the other shoulder. Back through center and release. One more time. Exhale, collarbones press back, arms press back. Can you feel that three-dimensional support? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Head over shoulder. It's okay either way. Turn and look over the other shoulder. Back through center and release. Let's step off of the band. You can give the arms, if you want, a little shake, and we're going to come down onto our backs. Feel free to have something for under the head to allow the neck, shoulders, and ribs to soften to the ground. Heels are ish aligned with your sits bones. And I'm going to turn my palms facing towards the sky to encourage opening through the front of my chest. Let's inhale here. As we inhale, our diaphragm moves down towards the pelvis and the belly rises. And as we exhale, the diaphragm moves up towards the ribs and the belly returns back home. Inhale, diaphragm down, belly out. Exhale, belly in, diaphragm up. One more breath here. Inhale, diaphragm down, belly out. Exhale, belly in, diaphragm up. On our next exhale, we're going to add in our coccyx curl, rounding the low back towards the mat. As we inhale, arching the low back away from the mat. Exhale, rounding the low back towards the mat. Inhale, arching the low back away from the mat. As we alternate, just checking in with the bum, see if you're clenching, and if you are, just see if you can allow that to soften a little bit. And maybe also checking in with the neck and shoulders and seeing if you can allow the upper body to melt towards the mat. Feeling the initiation of the pelvic movement through the abdominals and the low back. One more in each direction. Let's take our towel out from under our head, and we'll take our coccyx curl into our bridge with ribcage angel arms. We'll coccyx curl, peeling up, feeling both feet equally weighted, arms float up and overhead. And then softening breastbone, softening ribs, rolling down, angel arms back to our sides. Inhale, peeling up. And exhale, softening, rolling down. Inhale, peeling up. Feel equal weight between the 2 feet. And as we roll down, see if you can place the left and right sides of the body down at the same time, almost like you're laying your spine into a track. If you notice that that's not happening, that's okay. Just notice it. Be aware. One more time, peeling up. Inhale. And exhale, circling down. Let's move into our neutral bridge. So we're finding that 3D abdominal support. As we lift our hips, we lift the spine as that one solid unit from shoulder to pelvis. And then we lower the hips down, circle the arms around. So now instead of articulating through the spine, we're pressing through the feet in our neutral position and circling down. Just notice the difference between articulating the spine and moving it as one solid unit. Notice how that experience feels in your body. On this next one, we're going to leave our arms down at our sides. We're going to press through the feet, lifting the hips up. Let's place our hands on our sits bones, and we'll imagine the sit bones are gliding towards the backs of our knees. Keep that height there through the hips, and then place your hands on your front ribs and allow the front ribs to soften. From here, let's lift the right heel, or maybe even the entire right leg. And then we'll place that foot down. Maybe lifting the left heel or the entire left leg, placing that foot down. You may choose to place your hands under your bum as you're alternating knees. That can help give a little bit additional support. For some people, that feels really helpful and good. Or you might also choose to place your hands on the front hip bones. And as you're knee folding, just seeing if you can keep the hip bones level-ish. There'll be a little bit of movement between the pelvic halves because the thigh bone is moving. Let's do one more on each side, breathing. And then whichever you want, either a neutral lower or rolling down the spine, whatever you feel like your body needs. Once you're down on the mat, we'll take our towel, place it back under the head. And bringing our attention to the top of the spine, We're going to nod the chin towards the throat. Back of the head stays heavy to the mat. And then we'll lift the chin towards the sky. Chin nods, eye gaze down towards the knees. Chin lifts, eye gaze up towards the ceiling. Jaw can soften and tongue can soften. Seeing if you can allow the ribs to sink heavy towards the mat, letting gravity do that work, not using a contraction, but like a melting sensation, the backs of the ribs melt towards the floor. We're warming up the very first vertebra here, and we'll pause and then starting to trace a circle maybe the size of a toonie with the nose, getting into that second vertebra, trying to find an easy circle here, noticing parts that feel bumpy or sticky, just noticing that. And then we'll pause, we'll reverse directions. And then we'll bring our neck through neutral. Let's take our hands behind our, actually before we do that, if you want, take your small towel, place it behind under the low back, and then we'll take our hands behind the head. Fingers interlaced, elbows shining towards the ceiling. Shoulder blades wide on the back, chin nods towards the throat. So before we enter any head float, we start there. From here, we're going to peel head, neck, and shoulders up off of the mat, eye gaze down towards the thighs. Let the head be heavy in your hands. And then lowering the head back down. Let's inhale here. Exhale, shoulder blades widen, nod the chin towards the throat, peeling up, curling through the upper back. Inhale at the top, let the head be heavy in your hands. And exhale, lowering down. Inhale here. Exhale, shoulder blades widen, nodding the chin towards the throat, peeling up. When we get to the top, we're going to inhale, head is heavy in hands. Also notice sacrum is heavy, and if you need additional support, feel that low back pressing lightly into the towel. We're going to pause here, float the right leg up to tabletop and lower it down. Float the left leg up to tabletop and lower it down. We're going to go through a series here. At any point, feel free to stick at the spot that's your just right challenge or feel free to lower your head and do the leg movements without the head up for as long as you want and or need. This time now, as the right leg lowers, let's float the left leg up at the same time. So we're alternating legs, breathing as we go. Breathing here, head is still heavy in the hands. We're going to add on a torso twist here if you want. So as the right knee floats up, we're going to rotate the upper body towards that right leg. We'll come through center, we'll rotate the upper body towards the left leg. Inhale towards one side and exhale towards the other side. Inhale and exhale. Coming back through center, if you're wanting additional challenge, we'll start to lengthen the legs about 3/4 of the way, and then we'll lower the right leg towards the floor as the left leg comes towards us. And then switching. As this is our scissors or a modified version of scissors, still feeling the shoulder blades wide on the back, chin nodding towards the throat, and maybe seeing if you can curl up one more vertebra as your breastbone softens. Let's add our torso twist here. One leg up, torso twist towards the up leg. Switching, torso twist towards the opposite side. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more each side. You've got this. Inhale and exhale. Coming through center. We're going to lower the upper body down and extend the legs to where wall and ceiling meet. Arms are going to come overhead. Notice that the ribs can soften down towards the mat here. We're going to angel arms, the arms around, knees come into tabletop, nod the chin towards the throat, and peeling up. Upper body down, legs extend, ribs heavy. Angel arms, knees bend, floating up. This is called our double leg stretch. Lowering down, arms overhead. Circling around if you want, head floating. Inhale down. And exhale, circle one more. Inhale down. And exhale, circle. Let's pause here. Grab onto the backs of your thighs. Heels are going to come down towards the mat. Press around the low back into your towel. As we start to roll up, the legs will start to lengthen. You can press into the heels. Woo! As we come up, well done. From here, let's float the arms up. We'll angel arms. You can shine the breastbone to the sky if you want. And then we'll place the hands back behind us. Bending one knee. Let the shoulders sink towards the ears. Push the floor away. Feel the width through the shoulder blades and collarbones. Press through the feet. Lift the hips. Lower the hips down. Straighten your leg. Hands behind the thighs. Exhale, coccyx curl. We're going to round down. Breathing. When we get down, bringing the legs up to tabletop. Inhale here. Exhale, nod the chin towards the throat. Breastbone softens, rounding up. Heels press into the ground. Low back presses into the towel, rounding up. If this is a challenge for you tonight, you can also use your TheraBand around the feet, arms up. Angel arms around. Hands come behind us, bending the opposite knee. Let the shoulders sink towards the ears. Press the floor away, width through the collarbones. Press through the feet, floating up. Lowering down. Hands behind the thighs. Inhale, tall. Exhale, rounding through the low back, and then continuing down. Collarbones wide as we come down. Legs float up to tabletop. Inhale here. Exhale, feel the shoulder blades wide. Nod the chin towards the throat. Press the low back into the mat. Heels press, floating up. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, angel arms. Hands come behind the body, bending one knee. Shoulders towards ears. Pressing the floor away, shoulder blades widen. Press through the feet, floating up. My fingertips are pointing outwards if you can't see that. Lower the hips, hands behind the thighs. Exhale, coccyx curl, rounding down. Lowering down, floating the legs to tabletop. Inhale here. Exhale, nod the chin towards the throat. Shoulder blades are wide. Head, neck, and shoulders float around the low back into the towel. Heels press into the mat, lengthening the legs as we roll all the way up. Inhale, rib cage arms. Exhale, circling around. Arms come behind us, bending the opposite knee. Shoulders shrug towards the ears. Push the floor away. Press into the feet, lifting the hips up. Lowering the hips down. And we're going to stay seated for a bit. Good work. Let's take our seated prop. We're going to sit on it. And we'll have our legs crossed in front of us. We're going to trace our collarbones here. And then float the arms out to this side. So we're feeling this width, almost like if we had eagle arms here through the back into the arms. Let's rotate the left arm forward and lift that shoulder up. And left arm rotate back, shoulder blade down. And then we're going to switch sides. Arm forward and up, arm back and down. We're going to alternate sides here. Just getting all the muscles of the shoulder girdle here. A little bit of movement. Allowing for some release. Breathing as we go. Let's do one more on each side. Excellent. We'll bring the arms down. From here, let's place one arm to the floor. We're going to float the other arm up. It's in our peripheral vision. We can see it. We're going to grow up and over. Feel the sit bones equally weighted. This hand that's on the floor, we're going to gently push into it. And notice how adding tension through that side allows this opposite side of the ribs to open and release. We're going to inhale, breathe into the ribs there. And then exhale, shoulder softening as we float all the way up. Coming up and over, sit bones equally weighted. Gently pressing into this hand here. Notice how that lets the ribs open. Inhale, breathe into the ribs. And exhale up and over. Pressing into the hand on the floor. Inhale into the ribs. Shoulder softens up and over. Pressing into the hand. Inhale, breathe into the ribs. Exhale up and over. One more each side. This is our modified mermaid. Inhale, breathing into the ribs. Up and over. Inhale, breathing into the ribs. And up and over. We're going to go into our spine twist, but before we do that, let's feel our sit bones equally weighted. And just notice that we have this curve in our low back that we felt when we were standing. If you can't quite feel that, you can lift your hips by placing another prop underneath you. But at the same time, our spine, so the low back is curving this way, our upper back is curving out. So we're going to just send some breath into that back body there. Let's inhale, breathe into the back space of the ribs. But notice that the lumbar can stay quiet, and we'll let that release. Inhale into the S curve of our spine. And exhale, release. One more time. We'll inhale into the S curve of the spine. And release. Let's take our hands to our breastbone here. And as we inhale, we're going to rotate the breastbone towards one corner of the room. And we'll exhale through center. Inhale, rotate to the other corner. Exhale through center, hips square to the front. Inhale, breathe into the S curve here. Exhale through center. Inhale, breathe into the S curve. Exhale through center. One more each side. Inhale, breathing into that S curve. Exhale through center. Inhale, breathing into the S curve and back through center. Let's trace our collarbones again and then bring the arms out so they're slightly in front of the body. If you want, also extending the legs. They don't have to be fully straight. They can have a slight bend so that we can keep that lift through the spine. And we're going to do that again. We're going to inhale, torso twist to one side. Exhale, stay here. Inhale into the back space of the ribs. See if you can rotate a little bit more. And coming through center. Relationship of arms to torso staying the same. So as we inhale and rotate, that's initiated by the spine. Exhale, pausing here. Inhale into the back ribs. Can you rotate a little bit more? And exhale through center. Let's do one more. No, that was our first time. We're going to do a couple more. Inhale to one side. Exhale, release. Inhale, do we have a little bit more room? Exhale back to center. Inhale to the side. Exhale, pause. Inhale, twist a bit more. Exhale through center. One more each direction. Inhale. Exhale, pause. Inhale. And exhale, center. Inhale. Exhale, pause. Inhale into that S curve and twist. And exhale through center. Good, we'll shake that out. We're going to come off of the block and we're going to come onto hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. And we're going to start at the tailbone. We're going to curl the tailbone, rounding up the spine until head is heavy, breathing into the back body. And then Lengthening, lifting the tailbone towards the sky, all the way down until breastbone shining forward. Exhale, curling up. Shoulder blades wide, head heavy. And inhale, curling in the opposite direction. Exhale, flexing the spine. And inhale, extending the spine. Let's come through neutral, and we're going to do a little bird dog combo. So let's feel the left hand and right shin anchoring. Right arm and left leg are going to float up. We're going to hold here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll lower that down. Feel right hand and left shin anchored into the floor. Shoulder blade of the right side hugging the ribs. Left arm and right leg floating up. Holding for 10, 9, 8. Keep breathing. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lowering down. Right arm and left leg float up. Pausing here. Right arm and left leg move away from the midline of the body towards the diagonals. Coming back in through center and lowering down. Left arm and right leg floating up. They open away from the midline of the body. They come back through center and lowering down. Right arm and left leg floating up. Opening away from the midline, back through center, lowering down. Left arm, right leg floating up, opening away from the body, back through center, and down. We're going to build on again. Just a reminder, you can stay at whatever part of this sequence that feels right for you. Right arm and left leg float up, open away from the midline. Come back in, elbows and knees coming in halfway, maybe even adding our cat in. And then extending back through neutral, opening away from the midline, back through center. Elbow and knee in, maybe cat. Coming through neutral, arm and leg extend. Moving away from the midline, back through center, coming in halfway, cat. Extending out through neutral, moving away from the midline, back in. Cat as the limbs come halfway in. Extending back out. Let's hold here. Breathe. And then we're going to lower those limbs down. We're going to switch to the other side. Left arm and right leg floating up. We're going to move away from the midline of the body. Back through center, coming halfway in, maybe adding cat. Extending through neutral. Opening away from the midline, back through center, halfway in and cat. And extending out. Open away from the midline, back through center, arm and leg halfway in, maybe cat. Extending out. Open away from the midline, back in, halfway in cat. Extending back out, we're going to pause here, hold and breathe. And lowering all the way down. Let's come down to our bellies. And we're going to place our forehead on our left hand. If you want your towel under your hip bones, feel free to place one there now. Right arm coming to right leg or using a TheraBand here. Feel the pubic bone sinking towards the mat. We're going to press the right foot into the right hand and maybe the upper body comes into flight. And then we'll lower that down. Inhale, pressing up. And exhale, lowering down. Inhale, pressing up. Exhale, lowering down. On this next one, we're going to inhale, press up. We're going to pause here. We're going to add a really mini rocking set to this. So as we inhale, we'll feel ourselves rocking towards the lower ribs. As we exhale, we'll press the foot into the hand and rock towards the hip bones. Inhale, rock towards the lower ribs. Exhale, press into the hand, rock towards the hip bones. This is a teeny tiny rocking, in my body anyways. Exhale, press, and then we'll lower everything down. We'll shake out that leg. We'll place the forehead under the right hand. Left hand or TheraBand holding the left foot. Left foot presses into the, left foot presses into the left hand. Maybe the upper body floats. And then we'll lower down. Inhale, press and lift. And exhale, lowering down. Inhale, press and lift. And exhale, lowering down. Inhale, press and lift. Pausing here. Exhale, rolling towards the lower rib. Inhale, press into the foot, rolling towards the hip bones. Exhale, rolling towards the lower rib. Inhale, rolling towards the hips. Exhale, rolling towards the ribs. Inhale, towards the hip bones. We'll lower that down and we'll give it a shake. Let's come back onto our all fours, but more into a modified plank than all fours. So the legs have a little bit more distance. From here, we're going to tuck or curl the tailbone coming up through cat, and then we'll lower the hips towards the heels. So we're doing our spinal wave here. We'll inhale into the back body, and then exhale, tucking the tailbone, rounding up, coming into our modified plank. As we inhale, let's bend the elbows for a push-up. And exhale, pushing up, rounding the tailbone, lowering back. Curling the tailbone, coming up through cat, shifting the weight towards the upper body, bending the elbows, inhale, and exhale, push the floor away. Tucking the tailbone, rounding up, hips coming towards the heels. Inhale into the back body. Exhale, curling the tailbone, coming up through cat, shifting the weight forward. Inhale, bend the elbows. Exhale, push the floor away. Tucking the tailbone up through cat and sinking into our rest pose. You can widen the knees here or have them as close or far apart as feels comfortable for you. Then let's take our right arm to the right corner, right diagonal. The left arm will come sit on top of that right arm. We're just going to wiggle the upper body and breathe. We'll bring the arms through center. The left arm comes out on a diagonal, right comes on top to meet it, and then just wiggling through the shoulders, breathing into the side body. Coming through center, arm to right diagonal, left arm meets that right arm, wiggling the shoulders as you breathe. Left arm through center to the left side, right arm meets, breathing as you shift through the shoulders. Let's come back through center into our quadruped. We're going to tuck the toes and then lift the hips to the ceiling. Knees don't have to get all the way straight. Let's allow the front of the ankles to soften, to let the heels sink towards the floor. Feel the shoulder blades wide on the back and head is heavy. Let's breathe here. And then as we exhale, we're going to walk the hands towards the feet, seeing if we can keep the sway of the body from side to side minimal. And then we're going to pause here, hanging forward, breathing. And then as we exhale, feet stay connected to the floor as we start to roll into our standing position. From our standing position, let's grab our TheraBand. And we're going to wrap it around our thighs, crossing the band over the front. Oops. Crossing the band over the front in the front of the thighs and then holding opposite ends here. Let's bend our knees. As we straighten, we're going to float the arms into a low V or up to mid-height maybe. Inhale, torso twist. Breathe into your S-spine. Come through center. Inhale, opposite side. Coming through center, lowering the arms, lowering the knees, bending the knees, straightening and float. Torso twist, breathe into your S-spine. Coming through center, torso twist, through center. Bend and lower, pressing up. Breathe into the S-spine, through center, seeing if you can visualize the shape of the spine. Bending the knees. And as we breathe, we're sending that breath into the upper back or backs inside of the ribs you might think of. Torso twist through center, bending the knees, pressing up, torso twist through center, torso twist through center. Let's let that release. Let's stand on the TheraBand, hands holding. My palms are going to be facing forward for this. And let's just finish off with our angel arms and see if we can connect again to that three-dimensional core. Floating the arms up and lowering the arms down. Shoulder blades as counterweights as we float the arms up. Down, breathing as we go up. Let's do two more here. Notice what you notice. We'll step off of the band, we'll put it to the side. And let's give our left arm and right leg a shake. We'll give the opposite arm and leg a shake. Let's give the spine a little shake. And then we'll come through our standing position. Just take a minute. Notice your feet relating to the floor. The pelvis balancing on top of the thigh bones. The ribs balancing on the spine. Shoulder blades suspended from or resting on the ribs. Arms suspended from the shoulder blades. And the skull resting at the top of the spine. Let's take a breath here. Inhale. And exhale, release.